Yo, did you watch this week's
I
book?
did.
I'm not
Yeah.
done yet. I'm
Okay.
not done yet. I'm about halfway through, but
But you
I
did
mean,
start it.
I mean, the name of the episode is Return of the Mandalorian.
I was
So
gonna say it was. I liked it. It was basically a Mandalorian episode
that's
in the
what it
middle
feels
of
like.
Book of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
which is fine, but that's basically what it was. I won't give anything away.
Okay.
If you're only halfway through it, you said.
So he was just tasked with going to under the ocean or volcano in Mandalore because they're like, "Oh yeah, you took your helmet off, you're
Okay.
disqualified,
Yeah.
son. Oh, you can still hold on to the dark saber though. You're just not a Mandalorian. So
Well,
you
I mean,
can't
he
be the
has.
leader.
He has to. If they didn't take it
Oh,
from him, then they're going to be
that's true.
cursed. So they don't want it.
That's right.
So,
fair enough. And they
yeah,
brought up Boca.
I won't give anything away, but
Good time.
you're at the part of the episode where I felt like it started to pick up more. Because it's not that I didn't like the first half of the episode, but I felt like it was a little slower, and then it started to pick up about that at that point. So
Okay.
You're about to get to the part where it starts to pick up a little bit.
All right.
That doesn't give anything away. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Heading to WP podcast. This is episode 9. My name is Marcus Burnett, and with me, as always, is TJ Rogers. How you doing today, TJ?
Hey, I'm doing good. What's up, everyone? Hope you all are having a good week, or a start to the week, since this comes out on Monday and not when we record on Thursdays. But guess I'm not doing all that great. I've got my days all jumbled. But I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Yes. Everyone have a good week this week. Whenever you're listening to it, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. Today, before we get too far into 2022 or even out of January here, I guess we're pushing it to the last moment of January when this comes out. But before we get too much further into the year, we want to just take a moment to kind of talk about some of our personal and professional goals for 2022. But before we get into that, we're going to start with our usual first section of a little bit of housekeeping and talking about sort of how this last week was for us and what we did and all of that. So, TJ, why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit how the last week has been for you?
Sure. Coming off the tail end of last week, my 5-year-old son, Mason, had a T-ball game. It was number 2 of the season. There are 7 altogether. And so got to go to these first 2 games. It was a lot of fun. We have to continually remind him that power is not where it's at. Just connect first. And it's so great because all the boys have so much fun. The coaches, their main coach, Coach Angela, she has to tell the opposing team that they need to back up when he gets there. So regardless of if he's trying to hit with power or not, he usually has a pretty good swing when he connects.
When he connects, it's going far. And back everyone up.
And so they just have so much fun. And I know that this is probably weird, but it was pretty chilly. And thankfully the rain kind of staved off until after the game. It was a drizzle for the entire game. Now for them, since they're like 4, 5, 6 years old, the children in his particular league that he's playing in with I9 Sports, they will play anywhere from 2 to 3 innings if the coaches agree on it and if the kids and parents are all pretty okay. So everyone, will get up to bat and hit, and then they'll go field and then switch a couple times till 2 or 3 innings is up. And so it's a lot of fun. And baseball is not my favorite sport by far, but and you can probably attest to this, but when your kids are doing something and seeing how excited and how much fun they have, and even as he gets older, if he's continuing with that or any kind of sport or extracurricular activity, it's really great to experience them experiencing it. So that's been super fun. And then of course, I've gotten to be on the field with him at practice and during the game, and we're practicing catch and getting to throw with the other kids and other dads is very cool. And so I missed out on like all last season, and so we'll get into one of my goals being like more engaged in parenthood since I'm not there 24/7. But that was really great,
regardless of whether or not baseball is your favorite or your go-to. I know that you've always been into sports in general, multiple sports, and played multiple sports in high school and college and all of that. And so I know that that's just, that's a great bonding time. I same with my girls. My girls do play soccer and basketball, and I love just being able to be out there, outside on the field or on the court, and just cheering them on and having sort of shared energy, that shared enthusiasm about just sporting and being athletic in general.
Oh yeah, that's really great. And so that was for the most part the weekend. For work stuff, did some more training and helping our new hire Austin get more acclimated with our processes and procedures at Progressive Dental. And again, he's hit the ground running and is really quick knocking out tickets. And if anything he needs help with, he'll come to any one of the team members and find out answers. And he's doesn't miss like little things. And so he's found, even being here for just over a week and getting close to 2 weeks, is that he's not sacrificing quality for quantity and vice versa. So right now he's got like a good balance of getting through the task quickly, but not having to have a whole bunch of redos and going back and fixing something. And again, that's attributed to him being very much of a sponge and a learner, and coming quick with any questions. Because sometimes that could take ego hits asking for help, but he's very quick at, if he's not figuring something out, getting a quick answer from someone who's got more experience in a particular area.
Not to put you on the spot in case he's listening to this at some point, but I feel like he's starting to mesh culturally a little bit too.
Yes, he still is a little bit like gun shy. And so, just getting more comfortable with the team. Yeah, I feel like here we do a pretty good job of getting people pretty comfortable. It could be we might get them a little uncomfortable enough to where they can free up a little bit. Like, okay, we have this kind of company culture where people can joke around and play and still, get all their stuff done. And then we have our deadlines, and we can get to the nitty gritty and put our heads down and go get some of the more like grunt work done. But, we're also pretty laid back and having conversations with people all around the office. So that's really good. And yeah, he's speaking up already a little bit more. Friday night we did have a little outing, going to a local sports bar, and he was there that night and was loosening up to just being outside of the office and everyone just chatting and getting to know him a little bit more. So that I'm sure that helped too.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I this week, for personal stuff, which will also probably be in my goal in the main portion of our episode this week, is a lot of Sunday I was revisiting some budgeting, financial investing, and savings tools, app services, so that I can have better footing and better grasp on my financial well-being and planning for the future, because that is not anything I've ever really done. And so trying to get a handle on that, wrap my head around some of the tools, people to follow, stuff like that, doing a lot of listening and watching mostly. Thankfully that we're in an era where we have a massive library from the entire world, and anyone who wants to participate, that all that information has been democratized. We don't have to look through volumes and volumes of encyclopedias like when we were children, that we can get all that information and people bring a lot of value to us. So I did a little bit of that, trying to get some money things in order, and trying to get a freelance project across the finish line. I had just recently gotten in touch with my friend and client who I'm building this website for and designing the website for. She gotten back to me with a couple tweaks and edits before launch. And so that'll also be in my upcoming week, is actually getting that to the finish line and hopefully launching within the next week and a half. And then a couple of coworkers and I have been throwing around ideas for different creative projects, and trying to figure out something that lands or sticks that we can work on. And so whether that be one of the hot terms, NFTs, or other design projects, sort of short episodic things, fun things. Again, we've had a lot of ideas and stuff flowing just from the social media experiments and stuff that we've been launching for the company's social media and marketing. So that's been a lot of fun, and trying to see what we can take for personal projects and stuff like that. So I have taken some time throughout a couple of days just jotting stuff down and seeing if there's anything that can be pushed forward. But that's been my week leading up till now in a nutshell.
Nice. Yeah, I look forward to hearing more about some of those ideas and what you all come up with, and seeing how those progress. Yeah, for me, I will get straight to the one thing that everybody's probably curious about. Am I still drinking water, only water? And yes, so far I've managed to keep it up. We're only now 27 days into the year, but who's counting? I'm
That's
counting.
really good. Yes, I'm glad you are.
I will be counting until it's 365. That's the goal. Again, still, we'll see how long I make it, but I hope that the longer I go, the less likely I'll be to want to break that streak. So far we're at 27 days and still going strong.
That's really good, man. I'm proud of you. Speaking from personal experience with some of the weightlifting and fitness and health stuff, that really is the case. Definitely when you first start anything, when speaking from my own experience, it seems like you can never build up to a habit of something that, that I don't already do. It feels like it's a dream. It feels like something that might not ever be attainable. But again, just doing those little steps, man, it all of a sudden becomes something that you just kind of do. It becomes part of your identity, which again is a very good thing. Once that becomes part of your identity, it becomes, even more than just habitual, like second nature, where it's like breathing, and then you kind of just find yourself doing it over and over again without thinking about it. And then instead you have to talk yourself out of it instead of working yourself and talking yourself up to doing it each time. And so I'm really proud of you. And I think that you'll find that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I hope so. There's a lot of talking myself out of it still at this moment. It reminds me of there are times where, a client comes to you and they're like, oh, I want to do this thing or whatever to a site or project. And you don't really want to tell them no, but if there's a policy in place where that's just not a thing that your company does, then you can always just rely on that and say, sorry, it's against the policy. It's against our policy for us to do, whatever it is. And so I'm sort of letting that be the policy. And when I come to, oh, I want a sweet tea or a soda or something, I'm like, well, sorry, that's against the policy. It's not that I don't want to do it. It's just that's against my personal policy at the moment. And so I'm trying to lean on that as sort of a reminder that, hey, you're trying to do this thing. And it's self-imposed. So it's not like anybody's going to say anything to me if I decide to have a soda or something. But, I want to see if this is something that I can do and how long it's something that I can do it for. And again, the longer I go, I think mentally, the harder it will be for me to want to break that streak.
Mm-hmm. Dude, I love that. I have to say that that's something that I've seen in an interview with Kobe Bryant. He'd mentioned that he didn't want to get up at 4 a.m. and work out, but he made that contract with himself. And I love that idea of it, because that was how I started with the workout regimen. Was for the office, I can't just all of a sudden decide not to come in that day. There are repercussions, and 2, there's a contract that I made with, my employees and my employers that I was going to do this. And that's a really great way of putting it, is just, saying that either it's not part of the policy or it is part of the policy, and that's the contract you make with yourself. I actually wrote that in my journal like yesterday, because there was another podcast I was listening to, and they mentioned again that very similar concept of, just make it as if it's a non-negotiable. We find ourselves negotiating with ourselves the cost of something, but if we set that price beforehand, that's just how it's going to be. So that's I love that.
Yeah. Once we get down to some of the personal and professional goals, I'm going to have to remind myself of that and put some of that in place.
Ditto.
Otherwise, let's see. In the last week or so, I finished painting our bathroom, which has been going on way too long. For a while, we didn't have enough paint to do the other couple walls, and then I got the paint, and then the paint's been sitting in the corner, and I just haven't gotten time to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
finally, just buckled down and did that in the past week, and then in the process, I took some of our light fixtures down to be able to paint behind them, and then was looking at the light fixtures and was like, "Oh, these are awful. I'm gonna have to find something better, find something new." And so we replaced the light fixtures and stuff. And now our bathroom has gone from 2 walls painted to, all painted all the way around and new light fixtures. And it's
Okay.
looking really nice and getting me kind of excited to make some other minor updates here and there just to kind of clean some things out that have been going on way too long.
All right. That's really cool. This is kind of off topic, but
Yeah.
being as someone who works remote and works from home, have you found that the lines have blurred across the other way, where you're doing more work stuff at home than home stuff at home? If that makes sense.
um,
Is that what's gotten in the way of some of the paint stuff
no,
and some of the stuff that you want to do with the house?
what's gotten in the way is laziness and wanting to just step away and have like family time and stuff
Yeah.
when the family comes home. No, I'm actually super fortunate that working from home, like with the team that I work with, we don't really have like a rigid schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, anytime throughout the day, any of us feel like, I'm going to go for a walk for an hour, or I got to go step away. Some of our team has little kids that are still at home that aren't in school yet. So if they're like, "Oh, I'm
Sure.
going to go hang out with my kid over here and do like craft stuff or whatever for a couple of hours," and I come back, that can extend the day. If you started at 9, then, maybe now you have to finish a little bit later
Mm-hmm.
because you've got to make up a little bit of time and stuff. But, you know, the hours are really flexible. So if I want to get up early and then take a nice big break in the middle of the day and
Yeah.
then finish up in the evening, just the nature of how our team operates and the things that we need to take care of, that's totally doable. So some of that's just been being able to step away for an hour and a half or a couple of hours in the middle of the day and just go do that, and then
Yeah.
feel accomplished doing that, to come back and, continue or wrap up the things that I was doing at work. So no, I'm really fortunate with the flexible home schedule of our team. I know that's not necessarily the case for all remote teams. It can still be, 9 to 5, and my normal hours are somewhere around there, 9 to 5 generally. But, if I want to take a break in the middle of the day and then work a little bit longer in the evening or something, that's totally fine. So
Okay.
just
Cool.
a little bit of taking advantage of that to be able to get some things done in the middle of the day, like painting.
Yes.
Speaking of work, the one thing that we had this week that's of note that people can see, I did host Sam Munoz and Karen Page from Sam Munoz Consulting, and they came on to our virtual meetup, Godaddy Pro Meetup, to talk about the pre-client journey, which is from the initial discovery of the business, like someone discovering your business, all the way through to that first invoice. And so talking through some of how they build those relationships, and talking about crafting proposals and figuring out how many clients you want to take on and whether or not you have the bandwidth for new clients and what size clients and all of that. So everything kind of leading up to signing that proposal contract and saying, we're going to get started with this project. And so it was super, super interesting. They had this great slideshow. The two of them chatted through it for half an hour or so, and then we had a lot of great questions afterwards that they were able to hang out and answer. And so, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. The replay is up now if anybody wants to go see that. But that was kind of the work thing. I guess I did have one more on the list. I did start this week just volunteering, contributing some time back to the WordPress project. There's a kind of new project, new part of the WordPress ecosystem that is a Creative Commons licensed photo library.
Oh, nice.
That anybody can submit photos to. And then it's my understanding that in the not too distant future that will in some way be built into WordPress. So when you're looking for photos for your client sites, you'll be able to open up, upload your own image or look at your media library or have this Creative Commons library to search through and browse. And so I've contributed a handful of photos to that. And then also this week volunteered to be a moderator of photos in that library as well. So I'll spend a couple hours a week just going through some of the submitted photos and making sure that they pass some of the criteria, and then just publishing the ones that are accepted into the library. And it's been cool to see it grow. I think when I started earlier in the week, we had like 300 photos or something in the library, and now we're nearing 700 or so. So it's been cool to see myself and just a handful of other moderators be able to keep up with the queue of photo submissions and really see that grow into a really high quality library of images and stuff for website builders and agencies and all of that to be able to leverage in the future for building sites.
That's awesome. That looks like that's going to be a really cool resource. Yeah, you're sitting at 677.
Nice. Yeah, that's at wordpress.org/photos. Again, we'll leave a link in the show notes for that as well. And that way you can go check it out. Anybody is able to submit photos there and build up that library to something that everyone can use and benefit from. All right, moving on from all of that, we can head right into our main topic today, which is personal and professional goals for 2022. I will go ahead and start us off. I think we each have 3 or 4 here, but I'll start off and read through mine relatively briefly and sort of, give a little bit of reasoning for why they might be goals. We'll start with the professional goals, I think, and then we'll switch to the personal goals after both of us have talked through some of the professional ones. The first one that I have here is speak at an in-person event. That's just part of my role at Godaddy Pro is being part of events, both attending events as a sponsor with Godaddy Pro and talking to people about our products and WooCommerce and stuff. But part of it is also speaking at events. So far, I've only been able to speak at virtual events, and that's for obvious reasons. COVID is a huge dependency for whether or not I'm going to be able to even have opportunities for in-person event speaking. But assuming that throughout the rest of this year there are at least a handful of in-person events that actually are held, I want to make it a goal to both submit a talk and be accepted to speak at one of those events. And if you know me, which you do, TJ, you know that I historically haven't been all that comfortable in the public speaking setting. I think that some of the virtual speaking that I've been able to do so far will help prep me for that a little bit more. I think I'll be a little bit more comfortable than I might have been in the past not having that experience, even though, what we're doing here over Zoom isn't quite the same as standing in front of a room full of people and, talking about a topic. But I think I'll be slightly more comfortable than I might have been in the past. So I definitely want to challenge myself. I put, on here, if we go back to the habits discussion we had a few episodes ago, the goal here is to keep it simple, to keep it, attainable and reasonable and all of that, smart goals. So I literally just put down speak at an in-person event. If I end up doing more than that, that's great. But the goal is to make sure that I challenge myself to at least speak at one in-person event this year. And so, again, that's going to be dependent on COVID and in-person events happening. But hopefully that's the case, and I'll be able to make that one happen. The next one that I have is be more intentional about creating professional relationships. This is one that I like meeting people and befriending people and hanging out with people. But I'm definitely nervous and or shy and or just the introvert coming out of me that shies away from that initial touch point, that initial contact of, hey, this is who I am. Let's talk about, usually it's in the context of some kind of event that I know we have in common. So we already have, something to talk about. Let's talk about the event that we're both at and what we do and what brought us to that event and stuff. And I need to be better and more intentional about making those connections, but not just in person. Some of those can be still over Twitter and Zoom chats and stuff, but I I feel like I need to do a better job of I don't really like the word networking, but networking, just getting to know people in the industry, getting to know people that I can help, people that can help me when I have questions or just need to chat through certain things. And so that's definitely on my list as well. Making time and room and having the courage to just reach out and have, have those conversations and get to meet some of those people. And then I think the last one I have for now is polishing up on my design and dev chops. Some of that's going to come through maybe taking on some additional projects or some side projects that just I wanted to do and haven't done yet. But I speak to a lot of developers and designers in the position that I'm in through the events, people asking questions and in the events and in chats and stuff. And I just want to be able to continue to speak their language. I know last week we talked about imposter syndrome and how I feel like I'm not, top tier developer, and that's okay. But I still want to be able to understand when I'm having conversations with developers and designers what they're talking about, the newest, the new technologies and stuff that they're using, why they're using those technologies, what the benefits are and stuff. And that way, when I have those discussions, when I have those intentional professional relationships from the last goal, there's stuff for us to talk about and I sound knowledgeable and, can be able to keep the conversation going instead of just falling flat. And I do know some of that still, but having been out of actually creating websites full time, I've done a little bit of freelancing here and there, but being out of doing it full time, I feel myself starting to slip a little bit in some of those areas. And so one of my goals for this year is to kind of dive back in and make sure that, I'm up to date on, the latest in WordPress and PHP and some of the other technologies around what we do in the WordPress and WooCommerce world and stuff, and just be able to retain that, because it's one of those that I think if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So
right.
I think if I don't continue building and developing, even if it's just for myself, I'll start to lose some of that. So I think that's enough talking for me for now. TJ, what are some of your professional goals for 2022?
Well, it's perfect that you were ending with that particular goal, because that is one of mine. So I'll start off with that one as well. One of my professional goals is to try and stay current and up to date on any kind of emerging industry standards, techniques, trends, technologies, as you were saying. And it's such a blessing that we get to work in a space where it's continuously growing and changing. It's very cool to be in an industry that's still maturing, as we are older than our professions are. It's just weird to think about.
Yeah, that's the silver lining part of feeling like I'm falling behind, is that there's progress being made and that our industry is continuing to push forward and innovate and just come up with new ways to do new things. Really, not new ways to do the things we've always done, but honestly new ways of doing new things on the web. And so yeah, I do feel like I fall behind, but it is cool to see that that's because things are moving and not stagnating.
Yeah, it's such a great sort of mix of art and technology that we get to do this sort of thing, because sometimes it can feel like the Wild West, and then there are tons of times where it feels like we're just surrounded by such a great and giving community. And I've loved that too about the industry that we've gotten to fall into, is that it's not as hoarding with secrets. That's what's helped it continue to grow at the rate and even increase in the rate that it's changing and advancing, is that most people are very open source in the way that we think and want to get that information out, because we understand that one, being learners, that other people are like that, and it's great to be able to share that stuff. And it's not like the Bush's baked beans commercial where the retriever's holding that family secret till the day that he moves on. That it's great to be able to have mixtures and all these things where we can collaborate, and so it makes it exciting and fun and frustrating all at the same time. And so that's one of my professional goals as well, is to be able to stay in touch with all that stuff that's going on and that will go on.
Yeah, it's an incredibly giving community if you're just looking for it. If you're looking for help
Right.
or looking for resources, they're out there. I mean, the community is just 100% on board of helping everyone get what they need to advance in their careers and learn more about WordPress and WooCommerce and all of those technologies and everything. For both of us, keeping up to date it's a personal intentionality thing. It's not that the information's not there. It's just that we have to go get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then the other two of my goals that I have that I've been thinking about, at least in terms of our episode, are not as web development centered. This first one incorporates a little bit of that. And you've known me since we were kids, but I've always had a fond of drawing, sketching, illustrating. And so I want to be able to land or be commissioned to do different types of projects and complete them. And so I've had one that I've gotten already to complete this year that is a traditional piece. And so that's been fun being at a newer place, and being at Progressive Dental was that we had the opportunity to do our own art on stockings for the Christmas season. And so I got to be commissioned to do like 6 or 7 of my coworkers' Christmas stockings that we hung up in the office. So
That's
someone
awesome.
who, thank you. Yeah, it was very cool. And so
When you say you were commissioned to do 6 or 7, they tasked everyone with doing their own, and 6 or 7 people were like, I'm going to have TJ do mine.
totally shameless, which was A-okay. Because sometimes as creators and creatives and artists, we can let ourselves be paralyzed by not knowing what our next project is going to be. And so I could fall in, I don't know what to draw, whatever. And so, my ex-wife had gotten me like a really great present one year. She got me a sketchbook of 800 drawing prompts.
Oh,
Little
nice.
things. It could be something in the kitchen. It could be a self-portrait. It could be a soccer ball, everyday objects, and then more abstract things, and then a cartoon or something else that I liked. And they'd have, stricter prompts and prompts that are less strict, that were a little bit freer for you to decide whatever you're going to draw. And so secretly I liked it because now I had projects I could do, and then there were deadlines. And so I was getting to work that in. And then for some of them I got paid. So keep that in mind, everyone who didn't give me any sort of payment for next year. I'll be expecting that.
That's right.
And so
the bar has been raised.
That's right. It most certainly has. And so doing some of those projects that are freelance or for myself, whether it's traditional, digital, website projects. And so that is one of mine, is that, to push out a couple more projects selfishly, because that helps me grow as well.
Sure.
As an artist, and get different views and being able to problem solve, because that's essentially what we're doing on a daily basis, is we're helping somebody solve their problems or solve their audience or their clients or their patients' problems. And so
I don't think that's selfish. If you're better at your craft, then you're better at your craft for the next person that you're doing it for too. So I don't think it's that selfish.
Fair enough. And so that's one of mine. And then the other one is I've got an Etsy shop up that is for different types of art things, or decor, or DIY, or customized sorts of art pieces. Anything ranging from t-shirts or templates for people to use for their own t-shirts or invitations, birthday cards, stuff like that. And again, that was something that my ex-wife and I had started together. And so I'd want to continue that. And so, like you, I didn't want to get too extravagant with a particular number or goal, because that can be detrimental to having the goal itself. And so this one I might tweak a little bit throughout the year, but I wanted to at least like average 10 sales a month in the Etsy shop that I run and manage. And that's it for my professional goals. But yeah, I got a couple locked in.
Yeah, I think 10 sales a month on Etsy is a good goal, because it's not like, I don't know, you're not at a place quite yet where you're like, I need a dollar value goal.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the sales are as long as you hit 10 sales. And those are things that you
Yep.
somewhat can have a little bit of control over, right? It's going to depend on how much content you have in there, like what what the inventory looks like. So you can add more things to that. That will help with the getting to 10 a month. It also is, how much you're sharing that in different places, be it, social media or the podcast or whatever. I know you didn't throw it in here to like plug it, but we'll add the link in the show notes. And so if people want to check that out, then
For
that's
sure.
another way to hit that goal and stuff. And so I think you set a goal that was attainable, like more so in your control than any other goal for that, especially since you have a full-time job. Like this is, if that Etsy shop were like your full-time thing, then yeah, you might have to tweak your goals a little bit to make sure that you're making what you need to
To
pay,
survive.
to
Yeah.
pay for your food and all that stuff. But because it's not, because it's, a more of a side thing at the moment, like you set yourself a goal that you have a little bit more control over than some of the other goals might be.
What I love about some of the professional goals too is that they're not in isolation from other goals or other things that we can grow within ourselves or within the community. I love that, as you were mentioning it, I hadn't even thought about it while I set the goal, but setting an average of any particular number of sales, it's helpful to understand some of the marketing and
Mm-hmm.
being able to push stuff out, even if it's little things like, we're both on Dribble. And when there's a new Spider-Man movie coming out, what do you see? All this Spider-Man art and all this Spider-Man
Yeah,
inspired stuff,
it's everywhere.
and being able to notice the trends that are coming. We know upwards of the next 6 to 12 Marvel movies, and there are approximate dates where you could take advantage of understanding what people will be looking for, the same way that any company like Target or Nissan does when there's a Star Wars movie coming out, and all of a sudden they've got a
Co-branded
Nissan
ads.
Rogue commercial,
Yeah.
with walkers in it and X-wings and stuff like that, really being able to grab people's attention with stuff that they already love and get eyes on the either products or services that you provide. And so it's nice that these goals can help us grow in other sections that are related to it.
Yeah, so we're sort of going to transition over to personal. I struggled a little bit of actually separating personal and professional goals because I like what I do so much. I was like, these are all just like in the same bucket of things that I want to do this year. But we decided on this one being personal and professional goals. So a couple that I have on the personal side. One we kind of talked about at the top of the show, and that's just drinking water for as long as possible is what I wrote on here. My goal, my actual goal, which is not a small goal like the rest of them, is to drink water exclusively all year long. But again, I'm trying to be reasonable and practical with myself and know that it may not happen all year. But like we talked about, the longer I go, I feel like the less that I'll want to break that streak. So it isn't the simplest or easiest goal necessarily, at least for me. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that most of the time drink water and are like, yeah, that's no big deal, man. Just drink water. That's what you're supposed to be doing. And I get it. And I agree. And that is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm trying to build a habit where if I do it now, if I let some of that, the sugary drinks and stuff come back in, I'll have that feeling like, okay, this is fine. And it's like, I don't know, it's a luxury and I should mostly drink water still. And so again, it's more of a willpower exercise than it is a dietary exercise. I assume it's going to be good for my weight and for my teeth and for everything else that, like energy and stuff, everything else that water is just better for you for. But it's more a willpower test than anything else. And I would like to see it last as long as possible and then translate that willpower to some other areas, some of these other goals that are on the list and stuff.
That's what's really great about it being more of a willpower thing, is that, like you said, that really transitions to almost any kind of goal or want or desire that you would have in your life. Is that if you could stick this one out, then it would logically make sense that you could learn to have that same fortitude. If it was, oh, I needed to ride a bike for 3 miles, and I can get myself to do this now. So that's really great that it's that you have that mindset about it.
Yeah, and in that case, it's not like the 3 miles. I don't need to ride a bike for 3 miles. Like that's where I want to be, but I really just need to ride a bike for a mile. And then when I get there, I just need to ride the
Yes.
bike for another mile. And then when I get there, I just have one more mile. And then I've done all three. But breaking
Hmm.
it down like this, right? When I started in January, it was, well, I just need to do it for today, like January 1st. And then did it for a couple of days. I'm like, well, I just need to do it for this week, get to the end of the week. And then I got to the end of the week. I'm like, well, I just need to do it for this month. So I'm already a quarter of the way there. Let me just, do the other 3 weeks. And,
Hmm.
now we're nearing in on the first month. I'm going to get to the end of January and be like, well, I just need to do it to the end of February. Take it from there. If I can, I did it for 31 days. February is only 28. So, I mean, I know I could do it for February. So I'll just do it for that month. And then it's like, well, now I've done it for 59 days or whatever the math adds up to there. So of course I can do it for March, and then it'll just compile like that. That's the hope anyways.
Yes, nice little snowball.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I want to sort of translate that, that willpower exercise over to is shifting from late nights to early mornings. This is not easy for me. I've always been a late night person, a night owl.
Ditto.
I do my best work in the evenings when everyone else is in bed and it's quiet. I can just sort of settle in. I know that other people are off doing their own things, so I'm not going to get, emails and messages and all that stuff to sort of take me out of rhythms. And so it's always been, get up at a reasonable time, especially since having kids. It's not like I can sleep till noon, but get up at a reasonable time and then stay up late to really, like, I'll work throughout the day and, personally or professionally get the stuff done that I need to get done for the most part.
Right.
But really more of the tougher tasks or more creative tasks or things that I need to sit down and spend uninterrupted time doing have been in the evenings. And there are a number of reasons that I want to sort of shift to more of a morning focus. One, I think, again, it's more of a willpower exercise because I know it's not something that I've historically been good at. So it's like, well, can I
Right.
challenge myself to do that and do it? But also, there are health benefits to being up earlier and going to sleep earlier and not being up so late. I personally tend to also spend that time in the evenings snacking on things, historically having, soda and tea and stuff. And so that just keeps me awake longer. And then I don't
Oh
get the
yeah.
sleep that I need. And I know that sleep is very important, and I don't get enough sleep, and I don't get enough quality sleep based on the things that I've been eating and all of that. So without rambling on too long about, all the reasons why I want to wake up earlier and go to sleep earlier, it's just one of the goals that I kind of want to transition. I know it's going to be difficult for me to kind of decide, like, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm just going to stay up. But hopefully over time I can train myself to get up earlier, stay up earlier. And some of that's just going to be going to bed earlier so that I know I have the rest. And when it's morning, I feel rested and can get up and not feel like I just want to go back to bed.
Oh yeah.
So that's the tough one. That's the one when I was saying, when we were talking earlier about, Kobe Bryant talking about just making it part of his, his mantra and just who he is that, like, the policy or whatever you want to call it. I just need to that's the one that I was thinking of. Well, I just need to make this policy of, like, you are a person who gets up early and gets stuff done. And then when I get up and I try to convince myself that I just want to go back to bed, I just need to lean on that and be like, well, yeah, but you've already agreed that you're not going to do that. So just get up and get to it.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, I know that we're both kind of night owls. That's why we're here at 9:30 at night recording this podcast. So it is what it is. But it's one of those goals it's a goal for the year. It's not a goal for tomorrow morning. It's a goal that I want to get to that, or get to some kind of consistency in that by the end of the year. Just have a couple other little ones. picking up photography again. I just got a camera at the end of last year, and I've been sort of out of practice of doing some photography stuff. Part of that pulls me outdoors, and I really enjoy being outdoors. And so if I get back into photography and taking more photos, I will naturally just be outdoors more. And so I want to be able to do that. And being part of the WordPress photo library project and submitting photos and moderating photos there has really kind of spurred that back into something that I really want to get back into. And then the last one that I have for personal goals is just read more. And in parentheses, I wrote or anything. You know that I'm not a big book reader. And it's not that I don't read, I just don't read books. And I know that that's where the good stuff is. I mean, there's an internet full of good stuff, but I know that there's a lot of really good stuff inside of like business books and design books and even just some of the self-help books and stuff that I'm just missing out on by ignoring that whole library of content. And so I don't have any set goals. Like you were saying at the end of your professional ones, it's not like I have a number that I want to hit. It's just I want to develop some kind of a habit of reading. I'd like to say daily something, a consistent basis. And doesn't really matter too much what that is. I have a couple of ideas of things that I really want to dive into, but just to sort of build a habit of stepping away from the computer, cracking open a book, and spending some time just sort of in a quiet space, reading and really meditating on what I'm reading and filing it away and all of that. So that was the last one that I had. TJ, why don't you tell us about some of your personal goals for this year?
Yeah, so I have some that are similar to yours. I have one for myself. This one I might tweak a little bit to be in a little bit more accordance with yours, that is just building a habit. I am thankful that this one for me, I did start since Progressive Dental moved into this building, is that we have the gym downstairs. And so it's a lot more convenient for me to go to the gym. And, probably around early summer last year, I had purposed to do the gym 3 to 4 days a week. And I kept that up with the exception of Thanksgiving. And then even during that Christmas week when I had COVID, part of my test, part of the reason I wasn't so sure that I had COVID at first was like, I can still ride the bike for 40 minutes. If I have COVID, I can't do that, which is insane. But I was able to do that. And so now I wanted to add the number unit to it. And with the caveat that I wouldn't be too downtrodden if I don't hit this particular number. So the goal for me is to lose 40 to 50 pounds this year. And that seems like a really big number, but that would, be about
it is
4 or 5 pounds a month. You just starting in February would get me like past that, right?
Yeah.
And so understanding that if I just do the habit of working out 3 to 4 days a week, like I'm still at 300 pounds, but my shirts are looser, my pants are looser, I feel better and healthier, I can get around more, I'm getting flexibility back. And so I don't want the number on the scale to be the only way that I'm gauging my progress. But I do know that if I also keep this up, that the weight will come down. Like it doesn't have a choice. It's the law of what the consequence is for what I'm doing. So I'm playing with that a little bit so that I can have a focus that I'm focusing on to reach something, but understanding that if I just do the habit of continuing 3 to 4, I think I'm going to add 1 day. So my goal might just be to work out 5 days a week. And so I love that, because that's the most important part, is building the habit of, like you said, having the identity of somebody who works out. And that's more important than just trying to lose weight, because there are very unhealthy ways to seek the goal. And then it doesn't make it something that, like you were saying, to last a lifetime, or as long as we'd like it to last, because, it doesn't stick as well if it's not the habit portion.
I really like what you were saying there about it being a goal, but not really a progress bar. So like you have this goal that you kind of want to hit by the end of the year, but it's not going to be this like constant burden on you if the needle isn't moving like every single day. And I've tried to walk some, and removing soda and
Hmm.
cheese and all the sweet stuff, I kind of just assumed that the weight would just fall off, and I kind of see it go up and down from day to day, and it's sort of on a downward trajectory
Yes.
overall, and I can see that. But when it comes to a day where it's like up a pound, it's super discouraging if the only thing in my mind is, I want to hit this number. And so
Right.
I'm trying to, I have a number in my head too where I want to be, and I'm not there, and I've got some work to do. But as long as I'm sort of heading in that direction, maybe I'll get there by November. Maybe I'll get there by next March, but
Yes.
as long as I'm sort of heading in the right direction, whether I get to that number by the end of the year or not isn't going to be like whether I consider everything I've done this year health wise a success or a failure. So I like that you
Yes.
have
I
that
love that.
goal, but it's not like this constant daily progress bar where you can get depressed about it if you're up a pound or two from the day before, because that's just going to happen. As long as you're putting in work, that's the direction that you'll be heading.
Yeah, I love that. So, since one of your personal goals is to read more, that sort of concept is the core basis behind a book that I'm about to recommend to you called Atomic Habits. I believe
Okay.
the author's name is James Clear. I'm only in about chapter 3. I'm listening to the audiobook, but I've listened to the 30-minute synopsis of somebody who has implemented it. And so
Hmm.
I'll send you a link, or we can put this in the show notes too. Is
Yeah.
that the synopsis of the book is really great at wrapping it up and making it easy for lay people to understand, lay people like myself. And so the person whose video it is also gives examples of how they've incorporated into their life. And so now I'm listening to the audiobook because I have two coworkers who are also listening to the audiobook / reading the book. And I love it a lot. And because he's all about making the small changes that are more likely to stick instead of, sometimes this is necessary where you have to take a massive action, but for most of us it's just those daily rituals that will make that happen. So I love that. And so Atomic Habits by James Clear. One of my other personal goals is to be a better and more engaged parent. Since my ex-wife and
Always a
I
good goal.
separated, yes, it's always a good goal for sure. And so it's something that I have to work extra hard at since I'm not with Mason all the time. It was something that was a little bit easier when I was, living with him and being able to be there every single day.
Sure.
And so this it will go to like my other relationships too. And having known me for a long time, um, at least with relationships and with people, sometimes if out of sight, out of mind.
Hmm.
And so there's a handful of relationships where I've been able to keep that up and keep in touch. So a lot of men don't love to talk on the phone and have the same sorts of communication that women can have with each other, and that women want with men and other people in their lives as well. And so
Hot
that's something I really have to work on.
hot tip for that: start a podcast where you have to talk to each other.
I was going to say that works out brilliantly for us because we're
Yes.
doing professional, and we're attacking, at least for me, my one of my professional and one of my personal goals. So yes, I love that sort of uh workaround to two
Yeah.
birds,
And
one
I
stone.
mean, we do talk before and after these shows, and so it does allow us to keep up with each other on a weekly basis, even though we're not in the same town. I mean, we've known each other forever, and for a large portion of that time, we lived at the most within like 20 minutes of each other, if not in
Yes,
in the same apartment.
right.
And so yeah, I mean, you're right. It isn't easy if you're not in the same place as someone to, you know, keep the conversation open, keep things rolling. But I'm thankful for these, and yeah,
Me
I
too.
I see what you mean about being able to, again, that the word intentionality, making sure that you make that a priority to be engaged in every way that you possibly can.
Oh yeah. Well, and then especially for my son Mason, especially because he's at the age that he is, it's not as easy, or nor it should be responsible of his to, you know, us to have a relationship. And so
Sure, yeah, it's not on
I
him
want to
to
be able
reach out.
to yes, to focus better and be intentional about that, because his is one of the most important relationships to me, you know. And so
Yep.
that's very important to me for one of my personal goals, is to be a better, more involved, more engaged parent. And then this one will help with a professional goal. I want to, and you've probably seen this on my Instagram and Facebook too recently, at least the last couple of days, is, you know, making and posting 7 drawings a week. I love putting it out there for the accountability portion of it. And so, you know, anyone whose ears this reaches, please, by all means, get on my case, make sure I'm doing this, because I'm saying it right now that that's what I want to do. And so I'd like to do that, at least 7, you know, 1 a day. These things I found the same way that I have found that sometimes I enjoy working out, is that, you know, having it in a digestible sort of way can break down the wall and the barrier of entry to doing it and then keeping it up. And so, you know, these things at max take like 40 minutes, depending on the detail, 40 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on detail and how much I'm feeling it or not. But just getting, you know, averaging 1 a day should be doable reasonably, you know,
Yeah.
like way within reason.
I can guilt you into it by telling you, if you miss a day, I'm going to have soda that day. And it'll be all your fault.
Ooh.
I probably
That's
won't.
dirty.
Though.
That's good. That's good. I don't want to mess you up.
That's right. Take us both down.
Yeah, that's right. And so that's one of mine. And then another one is also reading more, audiobooks included. And so I take advantage of that, again, knocking out multiple things at once, not in the sort of regular way that we think about multitasking, but it is generally multitasking. So that helps me stay on the bike longer, because I try to ride the stationary bike half an hour to an hour, and I'll either be listening to a podcast, listening to someone speak via YouTube, or listening to an audiobook. And so that helps progress 2 of my goals.
Yeah.
Is being able to habit stack. How about
there
that?
you go.
Habit stack those together. And so that one is one of mine, and I'd like to keep that up. That one I may, you know, like with the weight loss thing, I want to add a number to it, so I'm like actively trying to attain, you know, also something. And then the last personal goal of mine is to find a place of my own. Ever since I've been separated, even before the divorce, I've moved around as if we were in college again. Yeah. I've moved around like 4 times in the last year and a half. And so being stable in that regard, and then having, like, you know, a place or a room for Mason to come stay with me. So, you know, like right now, if I have overnights with him, we're staying at like a motel or something. So
yeah,
being able to have a place of my own would be phenomenal.
Each of those moves has been strategic, though, not random, to be fair. They've all been
absolutely
get closer to work, get closer to Mason and all of that. So I get it. But yeah, having a place to call your own, to be able to have him over and stuff too, and be able to hang out, is a admirable goal for the year.
Yeah, and so that wraps it up for me for my personal goals. Don't want to get too many, because then you can start to stumble.
Yeah, fair enough. That's probably good advice. If you're going to have personal and professional goals, keep it to kind of a handful of each, and that way they're overall still attainable and reasonable and all of that. That's fine. We're I think nearing an hour anyways, and we will go ahead and get into our last section, and that's just sort of talking about what the coming week looks like. So TJ, why don't you tell us what you have coming up in the next week or so?
All right. So for this coming week, more T-ball. I went to Walmart and purchased some baseball stuff, more specifically some T-ball equipment. And oh my goodness, baseball gloves themselves are a nice hefty price. I could not believe it. And, you know, we had 5 kids, you know, in my family growing up, I don't know how my parents got all those, because I was like, ooh, getting two. All right, that's
Yeah.
ooh.
Children's extra activities are so expensive for some reason.
Right? It's crazy. So got more T-ball this weekend. I would like to finish up that freelance website that I have going on, get that live. I have a sketch for a coworker that I need to finish. And then some of those ideas that I talked about from our first segment, I would like to whittle those down into some that can be more developed or further developed into something that I'd like to start delving deeper into, and kind of whittling those down into a forerunner and one that I could just, go through to completion. And so again, some of the note taking is just so I have other stuff for future projects. And then I have been watching, and I've subscribed to Masterclass.
Nice.
And so James Patterson, some of the other storytelling ones, the authors, and Shonda Rhimes of Grey's Anatomy, Bridgerton, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal fame. She has, a lot of the writers have very similar methodologies in the way that they generate ideas, whittle ideas down, and then sort of shave and sculpt and cut off things, but leave some of the shavings for another project where they might fit together more thematically or character-wise or plot-wise, that they can use later. Specifically, Dan Brown, who wrote the Da Vinci Code, and then Shonda Rhimes had very similar takes on that. And same with James Patterson. So one, getting sort of library and catalog of ideas, but then working some through to completion so I can have some projects done, and that can give you confidence to move on to other ones. And then work-wise, again, we have another new hire, Mark, who's starting on Monday. So there'll be more training, acclimating, and meet and greet, stuff like that. So that's exciting. And again, it's always exciting when, your team is growing. And so we've got an expanding team. So that's really great.
That's good. That's good for everyone. Yeah, for me, I have another Godaddy Pro Meetup this week.
Fun.
If you haven't been paying too close attention, WordPress 5.9 came out this past week, and it was a pretty big release and introduced full site editing by default, actually, when you install a new WordPress install. And so this week's Godaddy Pro Meetup is actually one of my teammates, Courtney, is going to join me, and we're going to do a little bit of a live demo walkthrough of WordPress 5.9 and build out a little simple homepage with the new full site editing tools and stuff. So
cool.
I'll leave a link to that in the show notes too, so you can register if you're interested in that. Also going to do more moderating photos, like I talked about at the top of the show. The steady stream is coming in, and I think we're going to hit 1,000 photos soon, which is an awesome start to kind of this new directory of photos for people. So I'm excited to be part of that and to get in there. And part of that is also, expanding the goals of meeting some other folks. So I get to, meet the moderators that are also doing some of the photo moderation and stuff, and get to know them a little bit better. And then personally, just some more stuff, need to get some more stuff done around the house, mow the lawn, a couple more house updates and stuff. The lawn, I don't think I've mowed since December. We had Christmas lights and stuff on it, and then it's cold, cooler. It doesn't grow as fast, which is fine. But then now we have all that stuff down, but it's been raining a lot, so I just need to go spend some time in the yard and do a little bit of cleanup out there, and then a few more house updates on the tail end of doing some of that stuff to the bathroom and clean out the garage. So
okay, well that's prime audiobook and podcast time.
It really is. Yes, I'm gonna have to definitely lean into that time where I'm just kind of scooting around by myself and throw the headphones on. With that, I think I'll go ahead and close this out for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a favorable rating in your favorite podcast app or website. It makes a difference and helps others discover the show. To be notified when future episodes come out, please go ahead and subscribe as well. For more about us and what we're up to, check out our website, heading2.com, and follow us on Twitter at heading2. Also, if you have any questions you'd like answered on the show, go ahead and send those to hello@heading2.com. We'd love to be able to answer some of those on future episodes. Otherwise, thank you again for listening, and we'll be back next week again with another episode. Bye, everyone.
See ya.